Welcome to On the Precipice MUFON Contact Radio Program with your hosts, CJ Arabia and Richard Banasak, where discovery, disclosure, and evolvement meet. We are on the cusp of evolutionary realizations, technologies, and awareness. So come along and share in the adventure of discovery of who we really are and where we are going.
Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to MUFON Contact Radio. I'm on the precipice with my co-host, Richard Banasak over here.
Howdy.
We're both MUFON field investigators and members of MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team. And I just want to thank all of you guys for showing up. Thanks for listening to us. We broadcast every other week on Tuesdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, but you can listen to it all through the week. And we're pretty much everywhere that podcasts are. And if you like what you see here today, please do like, subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, put us on your social media, whatever you feel moved to do or not do. But first I wanted to say, hey, Richard, what's going on? What's going on with you?
You know, good to see you again. I'm very happy to be here. You know, we were talking earlier backstage, but, you know, this is going to be our 6th episode already. It's like, holy moly, the time has just flown by, and we've been really blessed to have some very good guests already. And we have a really good guest today. Again, I just have to say about, just as a preface, as a preload, one of my favorite personal subjects, this story, and then, of course, just the whole idea about our own personal thoughts about it. But a great presentation we're going to have today. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to our guest and get along. Anyway, so having said that, I guess we can go ahead and move on to just some news in terms of business that we have. So as you all know, CJ said that we are part of MUFON. We're field investigators. We're part of the ERT team, which we deal a lot with people who experience contact with extraterrestrials in many different forms and other things. We do abductions. But so one of our own, Chantel Toporo, Dr. Chantel Toporo has passed on recently. And we love Chantel. This is her. The picture over on the right is when we were at the 2024 MUFON Symposium, and she's there in the green dress. But we just wanted to just give a shout out to Chantel because such a cool spirit and a vital member of our team at the Southern California MUFON. Just a little bit. I just need to share a little bit about Chantel and the things that she, you know, gave to all of us. And I'm sorry,
it's okay.
I wanted to go back to this part here. So, you know, Chantel, a lot of people didn't know that, you know, she retired as a PhD in engineering. And again, I learned that after she did a lot of volunteer work, you know, House of Film, you're familiar with that, and how much she loved just being a part of what we did. And in her retirement, you know, she was a MUFON field investigator, you know, ERT team. Her abilities and her expertise were just, you know, it's amazing the spirit that she had. But anyway, she did a lot of work with her career. She worked for Lockheed Martin and a couple of Northrop Grumman, and did some technology-related stuff about the different aspects of space and satellites. And I mean, we're talking about a very smart woman. But one of the things I liked about her, because we sort of knew her as a MUFON investigator, but she loved her garden, you know, over there where she lived in Redondo Beach, and her chickens. Her and my wife would talk a lot about her chickens and the other great passion for food. So I just wanted us to spend a little bit of time, you know, just remembering Chantel and the how she touched our lives with her spirit. And anyway, that was what
Yeah,
I
Chantel was so cool. And she showed up to things. She liked to be social. She was at Mike's house when he had everybody over on the balcony, and we were looking at the stars and sitting by the fire. And, she showed up and she had a great sense of style. She always had style. The photos you can see from youth to the end always had this great style. And you can Google her. There's some of her lectures, like so smart, like such a smart person, like such a smart person. And also quiet, like not loud like me, but
humble.
definitely quite soft spoken. But she was humble. Yeah, she was just amazing. So you'll be missed, Chantel. It was very sad to hear that.
And not only that, Mike Rizzo, our one of the people at Southern Cal MUFON, wrote a great article on it. So it is on our website. I forgot to bring up our website. I don't know.
You're right. SoCalMUFON.com.
Yeah, SoCalMUFON.com. That's our regular, just general MUFON website, but you can also see it on our SoCal MUFON website. Anyway,
one, right, Bill? That's the one down there or there.
If you're interested, and not only that, for those of you who want to be a part of MUFON, those of you in our area and actually all over not only the United States, but even in the world, there's at the main website, you can get a lot of information about joining, about being a field investigator, or being a member, and our journal is incredible. There it is right there. It chock full of information. We have MUFON television, and of course we have MUFON radio, which is what we're on with KGRA. So I just,
and you'll get access to reports. You'll be able to read reports. You'll get access to stuff that non-members can't have. Right.
So anyway, anything else, or did you want me just to go to our?
Also, on top of that is MUFON needs some field investigators all over the place, not just here in Southern California, although we need you too, but especially in Canada, where they're desperate for field investigators because they're getting more reports than ever. So they need you if you're interested and you're in Canada, but really all over the world. Like MUFON handles reports from all over the world, and there's international directors that cover for some of the countries or places, states that don't have directors, but we just need representation just about everywhere because the reports continue to flood in. And if you want to contact Richard or myself about becoming a field investigator or anything like that, it's cjandrichard@gmail.com. And we want your feedback on the show. We're here to help. If you've had contact and you don't want to report it along official lines, talk to us. We're happy to help you in some way if we can. And I just wanted to also give a shout out. I went to the CERO support group, Yvonne Smith's CERO support group last night, and that was cool as always. It's always fun to sit in a room like that and talk about theories and concepts and all kinds of things like that. But what came up, and I forgot I was going to tell you before we started recording, but now I'll just surprise you with my pitch when I said I have a pitch of an idea. But I wanted to tackle the demon theory in a whole episode, the demon theory, because it came up and I just think it's a fascinating theory. And yet there's just so much ground. Like I started to write a little paragraph to talk about it here. And I thought, no, I think we should just get into a whole episode and talk about it. So with all that said, I think we're going to go on.
Hey, CJ, I just wanted to make sure, only because I'm not. Can you just tell us what CEROs is and the group, the support group?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Richard.
Well, no, that's okay. That's right.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, sorry, because I've mentioned it before. I guess I figured people would remember what I'm talking about. But the CERO support group is basically a local support group. Yvonne Smith, who is a hypnotherapist who's been doing it for 30 years. She trained under Bud Hopkins. And she has meetings online for international and just people who can't get it out. But also they meet in person once a month. And it's a group of us, I don't know, anywhere from like 15, sometimes more, 20, 30, it can get big. And so we meet and we hang out and we just talk for a few hours. Sometimes there's a presentation. I don't know, it's just really fun. And I see a lot of people that I see at MUFON meetings there. And, that was just one of the topics that came up. So I like to bring them up because I know that that's kind of what the people in the groups are talking about.
So is it an experiencer group? Is it
everyone in there is an experience. It's an experiencer group, and not everyone, like a lot of them are, what does it stand for? I wrote it down. What does CERO stand for? Close Encounters Research Organization. It does not roll off the tongue. So you just say CERO. And she has just been doing it forever. And yeah, it's just a group of people that are very supportive of each other and talk about things, and people have various forms of contact, and you can share or not share. And, we just learn. And she kind of, she's also doing research. She likes to see what experiences are thinking and feeling. And, is there a group consensus? How do they feel about this, that? And we just talk about stuff like that. And different topics come up every week.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Again, a very important and critical piece of information for those people who have experienced stuff related to the phenomenon, ufology, abductions, or any kind of contact. Sometimes you just don't understand what's going on, and you don't know why, or are you weird, or you're going crazy. And so those groups and other groups that we're going to talk about, I know, and shows in the future, especially the great Dr. John Mack and the work that he did with abductions and creating the support mechanism. So it's a good thing, and I'm glad we're doing it. And in the future show, we're going to talk about it exclusively because it's very important to have support groups so people can get this stuff out and learn
exactly
and help deal with it, have access to people who are professionals. And this is the whole concept for those of you about why we're here. The MUFON ERT team, that's what we do. We get support, we get you resources, we listen, we try to find groups online or in your local area. If you have people who you need to talk to, psychologists, psychiatrists, hypnotherapists, those things are very critical.
And they've all been vetted. We have a list of resources online. So, there may not be one near you that you can drive to, but no matter where you are, and they're licensed and certified and been vetted and worked on cases, and they're not going to treat you like you crazy when you talk to them.
The other thing that you said, and it's critical, nowadays with the internet, you can do Zoom only meetings with these people. Nobody has to hear. You don't have to go to a group if you don't want to. I mean, it's always good to go to a group of others because then you share and you open up and you realize you're not the only one dealing with the things that are going on. So I'm really glad that you brought it up. And I encourage everybody to either go on to the MUFON ERT and see what we have to offer for those of you who are experiencing those things. So way cool.
Yep. And you all know our email address, cjandrichard@gmail.com. If you can't figure it out, we'll help you figure it out. Sure. So those support groups are great, and they're online, and I've attended so many. Anytime I hear of one, I attend it and just check it out. And there's just different groups with different focuses. So, there's a lid for every pot. And what else? Demons, right? Demons. It seems perfect since we're in the fall, getting into Halloween or past Halloween and all that kind of stuff. All right. I think it's time. If you don't have anything else, I say we get to our guest.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, because, my own, I want to make sure that we educate and bring to people just some thoughts that we want. So this is a image of interest that we just wanted to share. I just wanted to share with everybody. This was from Mr. MBB333 YouTube. That's his the access for the link. But I just thought that this person who took this from their camera that was in the back of their house, dash camera. This is a dash camera, and you could just see it at the top. And I'm thinking these are the type of quality of pictures that are seen every day. Now, whether this is, non-human intelligence or our government's research program, again, it's just an exciting time of discovery of not only, what's out there that we don't know, but also, finally, I think there may be some cracking or opening from the secret parts of our government to help us to understand more. So anyway, those of you who want to check this out further, that is actually the vehicle or the craft that was seen. It's way cool. Obviously, you can see there's a dome in the center of it. A lot of people are seeing triangles nowadays. So I just wanted to make sure and share that. The other thing, too, that I wanted others to think about. Now, this is technologies of interest. And, for those of you who are not aware of this, and I really encourage this, Lockheed Martin recently had this article, and it talks about shape-shifting material. And again, I can't encourage you all as much as I would like to, but this is an incredible piece of information that's out there. And I wanted to see if I can make sure and bring this up for you So let's see if I can do this.
Shape shifting, like with what makes it
No,
shape?
they're growing skin for aircraft.
Oh, wow.
Growing skin for aircraft. And
Wow.
I just thought it was an incredible thing.
Things like embed the carbon nano.
I noticed that I can, but I'm actually on a different server. That's okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I think it's really cool that we're able to even see what we're seeing, and so this paper talks about all this aspects that Lockheed Martin, as we all know, that the Tic Tac was supposedly developed by them out of a reverse engineering, but the things that they're doing in their aircraft, growing skin for their craft, advanced compositions for the craft, and this self-healing coating, all this stuff is just futuristic. And, what we want to do here is just to share this with everybody, technology, science, cutting edge stuff, because it's important to be well-rounded in, because as everybody knows in MUFON, we are a science-based organization and we follow that rule. And so it's important to be open and aware, because there's many ideas and concepts and futuristic things that are going on, especially with what our guest has participated in his own life. So I'm excited about also asking him some questions about that. But for those of you who are interested, this is a Lockheed Martin article. There's a number of pages there that you can access. I encourage everybody. There was a video, but I had switched browsers, no big deal. And I think that you'll like it. So I thought it was
show
cool.
it at the end of the show. If you figure it out, just show it later at the end of the show. And
So if you want me to, if you're ready, I'll bring this up here, and you can introduce, and then I can bring it down.
Great. Look at that handsome man right there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have Franciso Mourão Corrêa here. Is he in the room now? You can pop him in if you want. He is a research member at CTEC, the Transdisciplinary Center for Consciousness Studies, a research department of Fernando Pessoa University in Porto, founder and coordinator of the Portuguese Exopolitics Initiative, co-founder and European director of the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, or ICER, ICER.PT, director for European Academic and Strategic Outreach of the Society for UAP Studies, and co-founder and board member of the International Observatory of Anomalous Phenomenon. I knew I would never make it through that without slurring something or stuttering something stellar. I first heard Francisco when he addressed the audience on International UFO Day, I think it was, and it was Stephen Bassett, Danny Sheehan, and it was the New Paradigm group put on a day of events, and he mentioned Fatima, and I was like, I got to find that guy. So hello, welcome. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here among you, and to have the opportunity to present this not so known case. So yeah, it's
which to me, that's a sad thing, because not so known case, and again we can go into why that is, but what an incredible case. And
well, it is less known. Well, it is known in terms of religious approach, right?
Right.
Yes.
But in terms of the study that was made for an alternative view of the facts or the evidence, it is less known in that fact, of course.
And did you grew up in Portugal, so you must have heard about Fatima as a child.
Well, Portugal is it used to be like 90% Catholic. Nowadays is less, of course. So, and Fatima is in Portugal. So, and it's not a national day, but almost like it is. There's pilgrimages every year to the site, like the Camino de Santiago to Spain, the Apostle Santiago. Right. So it's more or less a similar approach. And of course, if you're Portuguese,
you've heard it your whole life. Miracle as a Catholic. I mean, I grew up in San Diego, and it was my great grandparents who moved here on all sides, since I'm half Portuguese. And I heard the story in San Diego over and over. Like it was basically told to me like it was a very important thing that I needed to remember, because also my great-great-grandmother was there. They said they always told us her story of her being there and what happened to her. So I've just always known it. And it wasn't until I guess the last couple of years that I read Jacques Vallée's book and he mentions Fatima. And I was like, what? Hold the phone.
So tell
and
us.
you were here, CJ, in
sorry,
Portugal, right? Sorry.
It's okay.
No,
I was
ahead.
just there I was there. We were out there in June. We were in Lisbon, Porto, and then Setúbal.
You didn't go to Fatima?
I didn't make it there, but we're going to come back. I was thinking about it, but it would have been a rush. So what I said is we were talking about renting a place in Setúbal for the whole summer, maybe next year. And so I can also go to the Azores where I'm from and see those places, which I hear has a lot of activity, but we get so few reports from Portugal. But part of me being raised in a Portuguese house, because I was raised by the Portuguese side, I'm like, they're not going to stop what they're doing and file a UFO. Like an Azorian is not going to be like, yes, I must go report this. Like they don't care.
No, there are in fact some interesting cases indeed. Here at CTEC, we have the biggest database of Portuguese cases, of course. And it is interesting. It's almost like a case study for the fact that in 1980, there was a sort of a protocol between the Air Force and civilian researchers that allowed the civilian researchers to go into the air bases and interview with the pilots, etc. And two former chief of staff of the Portuguese Air Force, two generals, had their own sightings. One of them became heads of the chief of staff of the armed forces, so above him only the president. And he had a sighting in 57, 40-minute period of a sighting with he and other pilots that were flying with him. And so he became very interested in the phenomena and helped the civilian researchers go and interview the pilots later. And I became quite friends of some of the pilots, and including the generals as well. And so, we have some interesting cases indeed, including in the Azores, where this air base guard saw a round-shaped object that interfered with communications, and then he was like zapped and fell unconscious and was found by some of his colleagues later. And he was like in complete shock without being able to talk or everything. And he later was sent to the US to be interviewed.
Wow.
You know, it was funny that you mentioned it. I actually, MUFON's CMS system, their obviously case management system, I went and I actually brought up Portugal's cases, and we've had like 227 that we have in our system actually that's related to Portugal, but there's 32 recent ones that are unknown, that have been classified unknown UAP, and then there was 20 that was unknown other. And for those of you who don't know, the classification of unknown just in general means that we weren't able to provide any either prosaic or natural or reasonable understanding as to what it could be. It was so anomalous enough, whether it was information. So there's a lot of stuff in MUFON, and not only in MUFON, but others, obviously, as you know more than I do, but there's a bunch of cases that are there. And I just thought it was cool when I was doing some follow-up on this, that I can't believe the stuff that and the other thing that I thought was really cool, I'm very impressed with the work and the detail and the way that they approach, and it's like anything else. The Fatima case, what you do, what you're going to show us too, but just the other things that they do to investigate, to make sure there's enough of scientific grounded stuff, whether it's the clouds, whether it's the time of day, whether it's light, whether it's cameras, whether any of the other sensors. So I was very impressed with that. So very cool. And
our team is a multidisciplinary team. So from the social sciences to the natural sciences,
right? And
it has been like that.
It's a holistic approach.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Do you want me to start?
Sure, it's up to you. I mean, I have questions, but I feel like my questions should follow your presentation. So first, I mean, I know you kind of are going to have to.
What type of questions are those? Are in regard to the case, or?
No, I'd like you to talk about the case first so people know because it'll be questions regarding the case and they may not know about the case, but I'd love to hear a little bit. I know you got to kind of give a little Portuguese history to set up
background stuff,
a little background of what's going on in Portugal at the time.
Who you are, where you grew up and all that stuff.
Oh,
I will try to make some context to the story. In the meantime, so let me. So here it is. I think you can you see this? Of course.
Can see it. Very nice.
Okay. So Stellar, the International Observatory of Anomalous Phenomena, which is connected to CTEC, the Transdisciplinary Center for Consciousness Studies at the University of Fernando Pessoa. And we also founded ICER here in Portugal, which has members from 30 countries. It was founded in 2021, but that's another story. So apparitions. What I'm going to talk about is like a sort of a summary of this specific case, which is Fatima. I will talk also briefly about other apparitions. And I'm not going to pretend to give an answer. I'm just going to present some evidence of what happened back in 1917. Okay, so I do not pretend to have a specific answer or to know exactly what happened, because I was not there in 1917, of course. Only the people that were present there, and specifically the children, know exactly what happened. So we can debate, we can have different opinions about the many details that the case has, but trying to argue that we know exactly what happened, that's a little bit of fiction, in my view. So this theologian, Catholic theologian, and also historian, René Laurentin, he's like a pioneer in terms of studying Marian apparitions throughout history. And by 1991, he had founded about 2,500 alleged apparitions worldwide. And from these 2,500, only 21 were back then recognized by the Holy See. And so we have specifically those that are more impactful. And those are in the 16th century in India, Tamil Nadu, 1531 Guadalupe in Mexico.
Huge here. That's a huge one here with the Spanish and Mexican culture.
Exactly.
Because that laid the foundation for everything that there are. Just wanted to mention. Very incredible story.
Very incredible story. The three most known are Fatima, Lourdes, and Guadalupe.
Yeah.
I guess worldwide.
Very cool.
So we also have 1830 Rue du Bac in France, 1846 La Salette is also quite known here
very
in
famous.
France, 1858 Lourdes, France, 1879 Knock in Ireland, and
my country.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, Dublin.
Dublin, okay. So you may know Eamon Ansbro, the astronomer.
Yes. Yeah.
He's part of ICER as well.
Yes, he is. Actually, he's got a podcast that I've listened to. Pretty significant stuff that he comes up with too. So very nice.
So 1917, Fatima, Portugal. And several cases also involved miracles of the sun, where the sun gives the idea or is interpreted by the observers that is moving or dancing in their front. So in Tille-sur-Suil in France, Fatima in Belgium, I don't know how to spell this, in Italy, France again, Germany. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cases where supposedly the sand danced, or it was interpreted by the observers like it moved.
Francisco, I just wanted a clarification for our audience. So in actuality, if I understand you, and of course I read my own stuff on it, but so we're talking about two almost separate things, but they happen on the same time. But this idea of the Fatima, which is apparitions, and then the idea of the miracle of the sun, which again, they're distinctive, even though they happen at the same time. Some people saw one, some people saw the other. So
exactly.
it's a very important point that people sometimes confuse. What are you talking about? So
exactly. So one thing is the apparition, where the observer sees some kind of entity. Usually, they interpret it being the Blessed Virgin Mary, but it is an entity. And another thing is the side effects that are also witnessed, like the miracle of the sun, or flying globes, flying clouds,
orbs.
Orbs. Those are different side phenomena.
Colors, lights.
Colors. Most impactful is the miracle of the sun, because supposedly the sun, of course, it cannot be the sun, because the sun is huge and everyone in the planet would have seen it, right? And not only that, the sun is so big that it would have, if it would have moved in the way that people perceive, it would have huge impact in the solar system and elsewhere. So it would be the end of the world.
We would not be here today.
Exactly. So interestingly, back in 2020, this was 2023 or 24, the Vatican made an announcement that he was preparing guidelines for apparitions, for recognizing apparitions, because there were, it was 2024, in May, there had been a bunch, several people claiming apparitions in South America, and there was some ecstasy among people. And so there was this need, again, not new, again, for the Vatican to establish guidelines. And the miracle of the sun was a reference also when those news came.
Right,
so the Catholic Church recognized
phenomena type area.
Exactly.
I like that they did that. They put it in its own category.
Yeah. And so, but there were other, since the 16th century, that there was the regular need for the Vatican to come to the public and to establish rules in terms of what is needed to be recognized as an apparition. Because people tend to see stuff and tend to misinterpret. And so in order to have some control about the narrative, of course, the Vatican need to establish rules. Interestingly, during the press conference, there was this lady, this reporter, that made a specific question about UFOs. And this is the question. My question will perhaps somewhat strange. It will allow me, if it will allow me. There has been a great deal of media attention around the so-called UFO phenomena, with prominent authors and scientists claiming that UFO encounters are, in fact, spiritual encounters, and with some accounts mentioning heavenly apparitions and the like. Some have suggested that this new document provides norms also for evaluating these experiences. Your Eminence, can you confirm that this is or is not the case, and also to avoid what often happens with these topics on social media? And so the Cardinal Fernandez, who was presiding the press conference, made a very interesting statement. On UFOs, we are truly not specialists. We cannot intervene. It could happen that a certain phenomena of this kind is linked to a Christian Catholic religious phenomena, in which case we shall see, but otherwise not. This could also happen in other religions. It's not our task, and outside the faith, certainly even less so. So it's interesting. it doesn't debunk the UFO phenomena. It doesn't debunk totally the connection between the UFO and apparitions.
There's no debunking there. There's no debunking.
There's no debunking, exactly. It's it's
They
not
left it
up
open.
to our task to comment on this. And I thought it was very interesting, this clarification, not the clarification, but this position statement that is written.
Right.
And it opens the door for obviously many.
And it doesn't say either way, and that's okay sometimes, but that's pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just in Portugal, the number of apparitions in total until now is about 56, if I'm not mistaken. Since Portugal was founded in it got its independence in 1143. There has been, and it had a history before that, of course. There's an interesting case, which is the Battle of Ourique in 1139, when our first king had a similar vision to the one that Constantine had. Constantine in 312. The Maruvian, the Milvian Bridge battle, when he saw a cross in the sky, and that motivated him and his army to win the battle against the other emperors, and then establish. Well, this is a very summarized version, of course. He then established the Christian faith as the basis of the empire, of the Roman Empire. So that is how the Christian faith evolved, more or less.
Wow.
Right? And this in 312. Our first king in 1139 had a similar vision when he was surrounded by several armies from the Moors, from the North Africa. And he had a vision of a cross in the sky, and it motivated him to win the battle and declared himself as the first king. So there's a very similar.
It reminds me of Jacques Vallée's theories as well.
Exactly.
The shaping
how
and the
the
guiding.
phenomena intervenes and models and controls our history. Right?
Or influences.
Shape.
Or influences, exactly.
Yeah,
Influences.
and that's important because I don't know if they want to control. We're using words, and I don't mean that.
Yeah.
I just like the fact that it's an influence, just like you said about the 13th and the 11th century thing. Those armies were small, but because of the signs that they had, it sort of infused them with faith and courage and strength, and they won the day. Just like in Portugal in 1917 and the stuff that happened as a result of that. But again, just
exactly. So they felt motivated. That there was an influence, of course. There was an influence.
Right.
And one was a big influence that modeled a religion to be the biggest religion nowadays in the world, right?
Right.
Biggest faith, Christianity, and the other one just established the roots for our kingdom. There were in ancient times always these stories from the enchanted Moors, more or less like mermaids. So these enchanted feminine figures that would appear near water courses, and that they would enchant young men, and take them to inner worlds or to the water that they would take them. So they were seen as a danger, more or less, as a danger. Although very beautiful, but a danger. That is an evolution where the apparitions took an evolution from the danger for an entity that protects, right? And that's also interesting to put in perspective.
Well, it's throughout history. It's throughout stories. It's throughout mythology. It's throughout religions. The visions. Look at that. Look at Leonardo da Vinci. The claim that he was missing for 24 months. A lot of the great religions, even Islam and Muhammad, and even some of the other religions and other things that help people evolve either their art or their things that they were sharing and how they communicated with us. And it's a nebulous area. It's a very difficult thing to touch because people don't like to do that because we're, knock on wood, we want solid, hard things. But it's, as Jock said in his book, it's all throughout our history. So it's interesting. What is it that's influencing or interacting with us?
Human consciousness can be
human consciousness. Yeah.
So these are the main apparitions. So this is Portugal, right? The country with the oldest established borders in Europe. Okay, and mainly in the center and north, not in the south. Okay, this is a sort of a painting when our king, after regaining independence in the 17th century, when we, for a certain period of time, lost independence to Spain, and because the recognized interference of the Virgin Mary, our king offered the crown of Portugal to the Virgin Mary, and establishing rules that from then on, no king or queen would ever use a crown again, because it was just the Virgin Mary was the real queen of Portugal. Okay. And so apparitions from the 19th to the 20th century, we have all these. I think these are 16, also in the Azores. Okay. In Fatima, 1917, Barral, also in 1917. I will talk about that. Espinho, near Porto, 1916. So there are plenty of them. Predominantly girls who are the visionaries, ages between 7 and 12. There are psychic and paranormal effects, dreams, inner voices, ecstasy, of course, precognition, levitation, clairvoyance, psychophysical effects, total or partial paralysis, muscle weakness, loss of senses, catalepsy, hearing tinnitus, like the humming sound, spatiotemporal anomalies like teleportation, loss of sense of space and time, and environmental changes like meteorological clouds, sudden change of winds or wind intensity, heat, temperatures changes, and effects on animals. We will see this afterwards, of course.
Of course, we see all this in the work that we do at MUFON, related to the phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. So all of these, you can see that make a correlation with UFO episodes, right? UFO sightings or contact, etc.
Because that's the same list. Yeah, that's the same list.
Exactly. Both Jacques Vallée made that approach, made that correlation, and nowadays Diana Pasulka does the same, like correlating past events throughout history that are interpreted as religious events, divine interventions, angelic interventions that, according to the description from the witnesses, we can correlate and make us like almost a copy to UFO cases in current days, nowadays, right?
Right.
If was clear. So, Cova da Iria, which is the right place. Fatima is the town. It's right back then. It was not. Cova da Iria, and we can. There's also a symbolic term in terms of who was Iria, who was Fatima. Both were martyrs, but that's another story. Covaderia, 13th of May, 1917. This is the known story. 3 children were guarding their family sheep. Lucia was 10, Francisco and Jacinta were 9 and 7. Both Francisco and Jacinta were siblings and so Lucia were their cousin. Mm-hmm. They were alone.
Family.
And at noon, they heard a big thunder, and they witnessed the apparition of the Virgin Mary, and she asked them to return every 13th of the month and to pray the rosary. Of course, these 3, that was their everyday routine. Go
to the Covadeira with the sheep.
Go to the mountains with the sheep and pray. Basically, they were uneducated, they were illiterate, they didn't know how to write or read. There was highly devoted how can I say, society back then, of course. Yeah. And these children mainly knew how to pray the rosary and play, of course, but
very devout,
very simple life.
Right, yeah. and in reality, what we understand, at least from the record, they were just shepherds.
They were shepherds.
The reason why they were there is because of the countryside, the family that they lived in, the town. They were known shepherds. Their job was to take the sheep, take the goat, take whatever, take it to the field, take it to the water, let them rest. And their job, as they learned in all societies like that, they started out young. And it just, on that particular day, as you say, because of where they're at, because of what was happening, for whatever reason, this event took place.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't say it was the Virgin Mary, correct? At the beginning.
I will get there later.
Sorry. All right. I'm afraid to interject because I might step on your story. You go.
So on October 13th, about 50,000 to 70,000 people. There's not a correct number. Between 50,000 to 70,000 people. They were there expecting to see a miracle. And the sun danced above people's heads and healings were reported. The sun dance was coined by a journalist that was there from the newspaper O Século from Lisbon. And he said the dance sun, the miracle of the sun dance.
Yeah. Well, he saw it.
Not everyone saw it.
No. I'm saying that the journalist who was there,
he saw it. Yes, he saw it. Of course. These pictures are interesting, and we can talk about them later, of course. But they are quite interesting. They are from the time. Okay. So years later, when Lucia wrote her memories, she reported that the Virgin Mary had told her 3 secrets. 2 of them were revealed in 41. And the 3rd was written in 44 by request of the Bishop of Leiria. Leiria is near Fatima, and revealed in 2000. So these 3 secrets were the vision of hell, the devotion of the heart of the Virgin Mary, and the conversion of Russia, and the attempted murder of John Paul II. Okay. In 1976, Fina de Armada, this lady here, and Joaquim Fernandes started an investigation into the facts, reviewing documents and interviewing witnesses of the events. They published a series of books. 3 of them were published in English. They were both historians. Joaquim Fernandes is a very dear friend of mine, my colleague at CITEC, PhD in history. Fina de Armada was also an historian. I knew her well. I know and work with her daughter still. She died in 2014 with cancer. Back then, we had just recorded an episode about Fatima for the History Channel. And unfortunately, this is the Iberian division of the History Channel. The document series was extraterrestrials. One of the episodes was mainly dedicated to Fatima. And this series would air each episode in prime time on Sunday night prime time. And for this, I think it was the 5th episode about Fatima. I got a call on Friday night from the production saying that the episode would not air, and that someone from the board of directors of the History Channel had decided to cancel the episode because they didn't want to hurt the religious feelings of the public. And Fina was devastated, of course.
I just want to interject something that you brought up, a very good point. So for years after, I understand, the event happened, the church would never acknowledge of its significance related to the apparition and the miracle and all that. And at some point it did eventually became, and they recognized not only them and others. I guess what I'm saying is, now it's funny that, and then my point is when you get to this idea of ufology, and now we don't want to say anything bad because that's another way or another thought. I just thought it was ironic that, again, I realized that there was a lot of debate and things and all that. The church was taking a very difficult position back then. There was a lot of politics going on. There was a liberation movement. There was,
I will get there.
Yeah, no, I get it. I thought it was funny that, well, we're not going to talk about a UFO because it'll offend now the religious folks, and it's ironic that it's full circle.
Both Portugal and Spain, again, are highly religious and Catholic devoted. I'm a Catholic as well, and my family and we are all devoted. That doesn't mean that, for me, that I cannot have a critical approach to stuff. I don't like dogma, and so it does not affect my faith. Questioning or having a different perspective, but still,
God by his very nature would be an extraterrestrial or a non-human intelligence of some sort. So I just feel like,
again, it's another story.
Right.
Okay,
Again,
it's hard. You think about it.
The purpose of this presentation, of course, it's not to offend or belittle anyone or their faith, or
absolutely
right. This is a perspective mainly in terms of historical approach to the many details that were found and that we cannot just censor and put aside. Okay.
Right.
So these three, they published a lot in Portuguese, of course. These three in English, they are not that easy to read because this is an academic approach, and for the common reader, people probably will fall asleep. But still interesting if you can find.
I loved it. I read one of their English books and I loved it. I couldn't get enough. But yeah. And
so also, and Jacques Vallée speaks about this. What we have to separate is the children in 1917 were interviewed by the local priest and made confessions that were written, and much later on, almost 30 years later, 20 plus years later, when Lucia published her memories after going to the Jesuit monastery and having made a vow of silence, and was obviously indoctrinated heavily by the priests. Her memories don't have discrepancies to the original story, to the original confessions to the local priest. So things were added, other details were added, and there's also a sort of a religious interpretation of the facts. So that tends to also to
Cloud.
and yes, and to how can I say, to divert a little bit the narrative. Okay, so one of the things, and Jacques Vallée uses the pre-announcement in spring of 1916. In the original documentation, there's no mention of a pre-announcement in the spring of 1916 of a supposed angel that contacted the shepherds that appeared and that gave what Lucia refers as communion to them, something to eat to Lucia and something to drink to Francisco and Jacinta. Of course, it could not be communion because young children could not receive communion, so the church would never touch that. But again, this is a story that only shows up in the 30s when Lucia writes her memories. It doesn't show up. So for a pure critical approach, I cannot take the same consideration to this because it's many years later, after going through a long process of indoctrination, that there's no way to reconcile with the other details. So yes, we can talk about it. Lucia mentions a pre-announcement, but it was recollected 20 plus years later. Okay.
Interesting.
What is a fact, a written fact, is that during the investigation, and it was FINA that discovered this. On February 7th, 1917, a group of mediums in Lisbon that gather regularly, they channeled the message and they wrote in automatic writing from right to left. And they registered this on the sessions log. And this message, which they interpret as something related to the end of the war. There was the First World War going on. There were many people that had relatives in the war. And as you know, back then there was no television, there was no radio. Newspapers were mainly on the big cities.
Hard to come by.
Not on the.
And if you could read and write. And if you could read and write.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's for the shepherds. But this was in Lisbon, and well, yes, people were more educated, of course, but still.
We're going to need to take a break too. So.
No, actually, it's a really good place to
it's
stop.
It's such a perfect place. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure where to cut in, but we're going to take a little break. We're going to be back in 3 minutes. We're going to finish this, okay?
Thank you, Francisco.
Thanks, Francisco.
You're welcome.
To your seats, Cosmic Explorers. KGRA Digital Broadcasting, the unrivaled #1 source for raw, uncensored paranormal and UFO talk radio, has just unleashed a sizzling online merch store. Stay cosmic on the move with accessories, rugged phone cases, vibrant yoga mats, and notebooks perfect for jotting down UFO sightings. Ignite your obsession with the unexplained through bold, exclusive gear that demands attention. Kicking off with the Supernova, the store launches 2 heart-pounding collections, KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Bishop James Long. Every item you grab helps power the network and its groundbreaking shows. Stand with the truth seekers. Act fast, score your stellar swag, and join the uprising today.
So you don't care about his life. You just care about covering up your little top secret stuff going on. Meanwhile, this man's dying. How dare you put these people in the military to defend us, and then when they come out, you just kick them to the curb.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you would like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
All right. Here we go. So I want to bring up, if we can, the rest of your presentation. Is that okay, Francisco?
Of course.
So I don't know. Are you able to bring it back up for me so that I can load it again? There we go. And so are we? Hopefully we're at the right place here. Are we at the right place?
Yeah,
all right.
at the right
Very
place.
cool. All right, cool.
So what I was saying is that back in February the 7th, 1917, this group of medium psychics in Lisbon channeled a message, and they wrote and registered it in the sessions log. This was a message that could only be read when you put in front of a mirror, and it said, "You will always have your friends by your sides, who will guide your steps and help you in your task. The bright light of the morning star will illuminate your path." And it was signed Stella Matutina. And Stella Matutina means morning star. So morning star is Venus. So obviously, and also this. So the letter itself stated that something impactful would happen, and the numbers 13517, 135917, 13th of May 1917. So this was published on the newspaper on March 10th. So almost 1 month after this thing happened, the psychics felt that was something that was asked by Fina. She was able to find one member still alive in the 70s and asked if it was normal for them to publish their channeled messages. And they said no, they just felt impelled to publish it. And so on the newspaper, and this is real, this exists, on March 10th, they published 135917. Don't forget the happy day where our martyrdom will finish. The war that is made will finish. So they interpret the message as relation to the war. Okay. Interestingly, on May 11th, there was another psychic this time in Porto, who also got the message and paid from his own pocket. No, sorry. These psychics paid from their own pocket to publish on the most read newspaper in Lisbon. This man sent the message to several newspapers in Porto, and 3 of them published on the front page. And it says it was participated by the spirits to several groups that on the 13th of the current month, something will happen in respect to the war that will impress heavily everyone. I have the honor to subscribe myself, dedicated Antonio. This is his name. So again, some impactful message that came, something will happen on the 13th of May, and people thought that it was in relation to the war. Again, Lisbon and Porto, very far away from Fatima, and of course, the children would not have been able to read it.
So also during that time, you can help me with your research. If I'm not mistaken, the esoteric movements were obviously moving throughout Europe at that time in the 18th, middle to late 18th century, 1800s to the 1900s. And I know, especially in Portugal and others, that was the battle between the church and liberals and all that. I get that. But it's interesting that it was enough of a significant thing to them that this esoteric medium group, spiritual consciousness, whatever you want to call it, said, hey, we need to share this because it's significant. What it means, we're not sure. Could mean whatever, but we wanted to get it out. I just thought that was a pretty cool thing. So.
And again, it was on February the 7th, right?
Right.
The first message that came was February the 7th. On May 10th, also, so on May 11th, there was this man that received the message. On March 10th, it was published, another message. On May 10th, at Barral, which is north part of Portugal, at 8 a.m., Severino Alves, a boy, 10, heard a thunder and also reported seeing a beautiful lady, asked him to pray and sing to the star of the sky. So, Stella Matutina, morning star, and again, star of the sky. Interesting. And this specific location, I filmed there for some documentaries. This is not, it has no comparison in terms of the importance to Fatima. Fatima is a big place. The apparition that took place during 6 months, and this was a one-time apparition to a local boy. But still, there's a temple there, there's a church, lots of quartz minerals, very rich in quartz. Fatima is also very rich in quartz. There's many caves there, rich in quartz. So quartz has some sort of significance. So you can visit this place. It's quite astonishing to visit. So May 13th, so May 10th, there was an apparition. It was published also in the newspaper. May 13th, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta were guarding their ship when they heard the thunder, saw a beautiful lady on top of a bush. The lady asked them to come every 13th of the month for 6 times, and then she would tell them who she was and the purpose of her visit. That is indeed the secret that was never revealed. Who she was and the purpose of her visit. She also demanded that they learn to read, something impossible just in 6 months for illiterate children, right? Only Lucia and Jacinta were able to hear the lady inside their heads as she spoke without moving her lips, so telepathy, of course, and not Jacinta. Francisco could only see her. There were always a buzzing sound present. when the entity spoke, there was a buzzing sound. Okay, so this was the first chapel that was built in 1918 by the people on the place of the apparitions. This chapel still exists there. It is covered and protected. The lady that gathered or collected the money from donations to build the chapel was the mother of the fourth seer that was later found, who had an apparition to herself only for an entity that she could not recognize if it was male or female, just a very pretty entity, boy, girl with long hair, a long golden hair that sang and laughed at the same time. And when it showed up, she was also taking care of the sheep, and the sheep stood paralyzed. And she was very afraid or concerned for the well-being of the sheep, of course, and she was frightened by it. And it was a one-time apparition. This was in July of 1917. So first apparition, May 13th, 1917. Manuel Marques was the local priest who first interviewed the children and threatened them if they did not tell the truth. After witnessing the so-called miracle of the sun on October 13th, and after sending the inquiry to Lisbon in 1919, he left the village. He never completely believed in the apparition being the Virgin Mary. So this is one of the written testimony from the priest after interviewing the children. This is the entity that Lucia refers. So this drawing is from Claro Fangio. This was the husband of Fina de Armada, the historian, who was the first, and I think the only one, to have access to the secret files of the sanctuary. And based on the description that Lucia told the local priest, this is what he drew. Of course, this does not resemble any known Christian figure, right? How did Fina de Armada got access to the secret files? Well, she, as a feminist, and she applied for a scholarship to her doctorate to study the role of women in Portugal during the First Republic. So Portugal was a monarchy from 1143 until 1910. In 1910, our king was assassinated and the Republic was implemented. And during those first years, the First Republic, it was very tumultuous, very chaotic. There was a heavy liberal movement since the beginning of the 19th century. It started in France, the French Revolution. You also had the independence in the US. Napoleon tried to invade Portugal 3 times. Because of that, our royal family went to Brazil. Brazil was a Portuguese colony, of course, back then. And because of that, of course, people here felt more or less abandoned. And the liberal movement started gaining strength, of course. And so of course, there are several other situations involved, but the liberal movement gained force and eventually made a coup and assassinated the king, and the republic was implemented.
Francisco,
the liberal movement also tried to abolish all Catholic influence in the state. So the church and state were, during the monarchy, were hand to hand, and through the revolution and the implementation of the republic, everything was more or less. They tried to abolish the Catholic education, and all symbolic images in relation to religion were censored, more or less. So, of course, with Fatima, we can say that there was an opportunity also for the church to regain some influence in society. Okay?
But they were totally anti-religious, anti-church, anti-Catholic, anti-religious.
Yes,
the liberal movement. They were extreme in the way that they went about. I mean, even to the point where a lot of the bishops, priests, nuns either couldn't wear their clothing in public, or they even went to other countries. So, I mean, it was pretty extreme at that time.
Yeah, more or less. But those were the times, right?
Right.
It was not completely. There was a movement in terms of trying to censor the thinking, but still, there were.
It was heavily influenced in the papers and a lot of what was written about the history of that time. Can I ask you another question? I don't know we can get off on that. So you said something earlier, and I don't know if you were going to expand on it. This picture that's there of the Virgin Mary that was drawn from the testimony of I think it's Lucia. The one thing that you said that was interesting, and the only reason is because I've also did a little work on this. Obviously, that doesn't represent, like you had said, and that's where I'm going, of what we would say an apparition of Catholicism would look like. Even though it's quite interesting, it actually looks like Guan Yin. I don't know if you know who Guan Yin is. It's a Buddhist mother, sort of a Mary lady, and it's ironic how similar. Again, other cultures, other ladies, other apparitions. It's just ironic that back then how that was. Do you have any comments or further on that? I'm just curious.
No, I mean it can relate to other. Including some entities from ancient Egypt, you can find some characteristics there. So yeah, you can correlate among other figures across history, not exactly with Christian figures.
Influences, yeah, interesting.
And holding this ball of light, which was later interpreted as the Sacred Heart of Mary. So Lucia never said it was the Virgin Mary. It was the uncle of Jacinta, who initially all the families were quite skeptical of this, but then with the motivation from the kids. This uncle from Jacinta said, well, if it comes from above, who else can it be if not the Blessed Virgin Mary? Okay, so that's where it started. But Lucia never said it was the Virgin Mary. Okay? And later, there was an image, and I think I have that slide. There was an image that was offered to the sanctuary representing the Virgin Mary. And Lucia said, well, it doesn't resemble what I saw, and the man that offered that image that still exists in the sanctuary, it is part of a sacred art collection. He said it was copied from another Virgin Mary image that was the Virgin of Lapa. And it has nothing to do with what Lucia saw. So Francisco told the priest about how he was surprised to see the ship completely frozen when the lady showed up. he also said that he felt very tired afterwards and that time flew. So we can see like missing time here and how they were, again, very similar to UFO reports or contact reports, right? They will refer that the lady would come down through a stair of light. Again, this is a drawing from Claro Fangio. A stair of light, and would go up in the same way. Jacinta even said that when the lady reached the cloud that transported the lady, there were doors, the doors of heaven, that would close, almost hitting the lady's feet, like doing this. Right? Also, there were reports that the leaves were damaged. So the children said that the leaves were damaged after the lady would disappear.
Like
so
an impression. Like an impression.
Yeah. Other witnesses said that there was some kind of a luminous cone. So other witnesses would not see the Virgin Mary, only the children would. But other witnesses would see the other phenomena that accompanied the apparition. They saw that cone of light that involved the shepherds, and they also reference the dim of light, like they were like on a theater, that the lights would, the daylight would dim, and the bush would look damaged after apparition. Okay, so where am I? Here. So 13th of May, only the shepherds, the 3 children. On June, there were already some people there. We don't know how many, but there are estimates. There were stories of dozens of people. We don't know for sure. There were a few people on June, and the number grew every time. Again, there were no television, there was no radio, mainly word of mouth that spread. Okay. In August, so always around noon, they were waiting for the lady to come. Then lightning struck and the lady appeared. There was always this almost preparation. This thunder was heard, and then the showing of the entity. In August, the children were taken by the bishop. They were closed because there was already a movement growing, and the church felt they were losing control of the situation, and so they closed the children. They locked the children on the nearby city. Still, people that were there in August, on the 13th of August, reported hearing the lightning, the thunder, and also seeing some strange phenomena like moving clouds and orbs of light, etc. The children returned later, and on the 19th of August, the apparition took place. And after that, on September, there were growing, not only there were growing number of people, there were more related phenomena to the apparition. There were globes of light reported, flying hats. What is a flying hat? Well, people did not understand. People never had seen an airplane. There were no airplanes in Portugal back then. Never had seen a UFO. So a flying hat, what is a flying hat? Right? With a dome. Strange things that people could not understand. And then 13th of October, when people were expecting to see the so-called miracle and wanting to know exactly what would the entity tell them about about its own origin and the reason for the visitation.
Before you move on, I have a couple questions. So the interesting thing that I think people, again, some of the books that I read, that, the 13th of August, I understand that, the local government, if you will, sequestered them with and again, why or for whatever
Not the
reason.
local government, it was a bishop.
Again, the idea is that they were somewhat disturbing the peace of everybody and making everybody incited. And so I thought that was an interesting thing. But the other thing I wanted to make sure and say, so I was doing some research about you and others and a couple of days ago. And when I was doing the research, my wife, who does a lot of flowers and stuff, got a friend request from a lady by the name of Fatima. So the second thing that's significant, it was on the 19th of August when I was doing the research.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know that, to be honest with you, until I looked at some of the stuff that you did. And I said, the 19th of August, is that today? And my wife showed me the lady who sent it was on Threads now, which is Instagram. And her name was Fatima Garcia, white hair, flowers.
Wow.
Again, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe it's a synchronicity.
Interesting.
So I just thought it was a cool thing because I think that's how the spirit and consciousness work. So please go.
Exactly.
I wanted to digress. Thank you very much.
So in August, September, and October, like I said, witnesses report seeing various strange objects, like luminous oval-shaped objects that flew smoothly but fast, luminous globes spinning in the clouds, presenting several colors, flying hats, flying crosses, things that they could not explain or understand. On each apparition day, the sign most noticed by the witnesses was always, without a doubt, the noticeable decrease in sunlight. Like they were in a theater. Like Jacques Vallée points this out as well. There's like a spectacle going on. October 13th, again, more than 50,000 people attended, expecting to witness what they believed would be a revelation or a miracle. It had been raining all night and morning. People were completely wet. And at noon, according to one reporter of the newspaper O Século, the sun danced. So these are photographs from the time. You have to understand that back then, taking a photograph was not like today. It was not like pressing a button. You had to set up the machine. You have to wait for the right time, wait for the light to come in, and then so all of this process would take a few seconds, and during those few seconds, lots of things can happen, right? And so you would lose, and you cannot capture movement as well. So Fina de Armada, again, I was saying when I think I didn't finish that story. Fina was applied for a doctorate, a scholarship for her doctorate through the Institute for Scientific Studies back then. And she wanted to make precisely study the role of women in the First Republic. And as she knew that this woman had gathered, collected money to build the chapel, and Fatima was so important, she asked permission to have access to the files in the sanctuary to collect more information about that woman, because it was important. It was the first chapel built in Covadonga. And so when she was there, she had to sign lots of papers, confidentiality. She agreed to not publish anything without the permission from the sanctuary. She could not record anything. She always had someone next to her, seeing what she was doing. And she apparently was lucky enough to find the right folders, the right suitcases with information. One of the folders had specific titles like saying unusual phenomena, something like that. And so she was able to collect lots of data. Then she went to the National Archives where she identified, and my colleagues also from from the team of researchers, historians, psychologists, etc., etc. They were able to pinpoint several of the witnesses from the 13th of October, and they were able to interview the ones that were still alive back then. And so there was a correlation with the data, right? From some of the witnesses from the National Archives, this José Pereira Gens, a medical doctor, it was a strange sun flat with a well-defined boundary that looked like a dull silver disc. So during or after the apparition was taking place, suddenly from behind the clouds, this is from José, this is from Claro Fangio still, from behind the clouds, a spinning sun that was seen on a radius of 20 kilometers range. People from different localities saw it coming from behind the clouds, spinning, flashing lights, and it made like a flyby above people's heads. So this is the bush where the apparition was taking place. All the people here. This is José Sotomayor, a big friend of Fina de Armada, a good friend of mine as well, a researcher at university, and some people reported seeing 3 figures inside the sun that they interpret as being the Holy Family, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. But only very few people saw that. So what is interesting to us is the flyby. Because it started turning sharply on itself. Its edges became scarlet and slid like a whirlwind, spreading flames of fire, gashing cascades of green lights, red, blue, and violet in various shades, which were reflected in the soil, trees, bushes, and the clothes. Joé Proença Almeida Garrett, lawyer, and a professor in the University of Coimbra, which is the oldest university in Portugal, was founded in 1290. So what is interesting when pinpointing the several witnesses, and at least 28 were identified by my colleagues, you can then identify physical evidence of something that happened, which is, for instance, and so here you can see the trajectory where people stood and what feeling heat, dryness of clothing and soil, and physiological effects like skin burns or small healings that happened. So it had been raining but several people reported that their clothes dried and the soil below them as well. Few cars that were there. There were reports, very few. There were no roads back then. Very few cars. Reports of mechanical failures, windshields that were suddenly shattered, sudden combustion of gasoline, hoods of cars that ripped out, like it was confusion, right? Chaotic. Healing and skin burns were also reported. Many witnesses saying it was a marvelous but very frightening event. People always heard a buzzing sound and saw a rain of small flowers, probably angel hair. We have several cases of angel hair. One of them besides the one in Fatima and later in the 20s, there's a big, huge case in 59 where not only the angel hair was collected, but also a small microorganism was collected and was researched and was analyzed at the laboratory. Very interesting case. So this is a reconstruction of the sun passing through over the 20.
The previous slide that you had, if you can go back one just a second, and these are pictures that we get all the time from experiencers of the phenomenon that we investigate a lot. They'll have these kind of pictures, they'll have that kind of trajectory, and then if you go to the next one that you had, I guess 25, they'll even show the path of what they saw. So some of these are, even the one I just recently read from Portugal, the guy did just this stuff, obviously in modern day, computer, but it's just exactly like what we would see with the phenomena. Just thought it was pretty cool.
So this is the most known picture that was published, I guess, on Time magazine by Observatorio Romano. But this is not from 1917. This was found to be from 1925 in Torres Novas, which is a place near Fatima. It has nothing to do with the miracle of the sun. Okay, so just a quick debunking. This is Joshua Benulial, very well-known photographer of the royal family included, but a very well-known photographer back then. Again, this is the machine. And back then he was present, of course. This is my colleague José Machado from the University of Trás-os-Montes. He's part of our team of researchers. And he was able, because of another research project that was being done, analyzing photographs from Joshua Benulial, and they had access, because he was the main photographer back then, they had access to a set of, by coincidence, a set of photographs from 13th of May 1917 by this photographer. And there are, I think, 13 sets of photographs where you see interesting, how can I say, strange things. Mainly, if it was noon and the sun would be here, why are people looking this way, right? And you see that something here burned, and there's some like rays of light coming this way. So something was here. People are looking here. But if it was noon, the sun would be here, right? So something was there, and something burned the glass plate. There are very many other photographs with interesting phenomena. So this is Fatima. This is where the first chapel is located. And you see there's this devotion every 13th, May 13th, every year. It's full. When for the 100th anniversary, the Pope came, and there were 1 million people attending this. Wow. So it is massive. So in terms of the message, the gathering of people to pray for world peace and to be there concentrated, it's I mean, you can feel the energy. It's absolutely amazing. So in that sense, it is impactful. There is an interesting side story, which is this guy, Bogusław Lipinski, a Polish biochemist. He made several studies in terms of research, biochemistry, in terms of applying medicine to analyze blood flow, etc. And he has several patents. He was a researcher at a research laboratory in Cambridge and at Harvard Medical School in Boston. And he did some interesting, he was the editor of the electronic properties of, how can I say, biological material. Measuring
electromagnetic.
No, properties of biological materials, emphasizing electrical properties in biological materials. So he was able to measure the energy that would be released by people when they are praying. So initially, he was very interested in this apparition in Yugoslavia, Medjugorje, and he went there and with this electroscope model BT400, and he was able to evaluate this ionizing radiation that was present in the field without the people and during the apparitions and during when people were praying. And so he also measured in sports events when people are cheering, etc. So this is the normal readings between 0 and 15 millirads hour. And so in sports fields, he was able to measure between 20 and 70 millirads. But during the apparitions and when people were praying, he measured up until 100,000 millirads.
Wow.
And so he was able to repeat that, and even with other research teams. And so the supposition, well, some researchers think, because many apparition cases, the apparition or the entity asks for people to build chapels, like on top of the mountain, build a chapel, pray, build a chapel, and people go and pray. If indeed this ionizing radiation is released in such intense readings, maybe these entities feed from this energy, and they need us to conduct those rituals.
So this is the power of prayer.
The power of prayer, yeah. So again, there's obviously speculation. The readings were made. The readings were repeated. More than one team was there. So, but again, the conclusion and it is mere speculation. But it is interesting, and goes also Salvador Freixedo, who was also a Jesuit, Spanish Jesuit priest that went against the church in the end, had a similar vision that we are controlled by these entities that feed from.
But this is the whole idea of consciousness and spirituality and energy, and even your mystics that said that stuff in 1917. It's about energy, right? You're reading energy.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is Fina. This was the last gathering that we had before Fina died. We honored. Joaquim Fernandes was not able to be present, unfortunately, because he was ill back then. But this is her daughter. This is José Sotomayor, one of the joints. So we have physicists, mechanical engineer, anthropologists, historians. So everyone, multi-field. Not everyone is here, but he was the last gathering of the team before she was dead. And I conclude my presentation, my email, but if anyone wants to reach me, can reach also to CJ or you, Richard. Stellar.com.pt is our main organization here in Portugal. ICERassociation.org is the international organization. And thank you for your time. And I hope it was not too much boring, because I know that sometimes my English tends to be a little bit more, the rhythm is not the ideal one, but thank you for your time.
The presentation is incredible, and I know there's a lot of material on it. So the cool thing about it is people can look and go and read all about it. The book that you talked about was really good. And again, this is just not in conflict. The one I particularly like was written by William Thomas Walsh in 1954. And he actually talked to Lucia and interviewed her for the book and a lot of the things. I really like this book. Obviously, that's the Lady of Fatima statue that you mentioned. But a very good book. It's a renowned Harvard guy for the Catholic Church back then. So it was a really good book. I really enjoyed that work, and I know you do a lot of work. I do have a question because I know we really don't have a bunch of more time, and I want to bring that, but I wanted to let CJ ask whatever. I still can't hear you. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you want to pull that off and maybe take your
the headset is not working.
You turn up your volume maybe a little bit. I don't know if that's no.
No, you're muted.
Either muted. It says on the thing here that you're muted.
It says
I unmuted.
Yes.
What about now?
There you go.
Now we can hear. Yeah.
All right. Well,
now
it
we
said
can hear.
unmuted, and then it went back to muted again. Maybe Bill was trying to help me unmute too, or something like that. Approximately 10 minutes left. I was going to say, it's so funny. I made a few comments. I was like, dang, they can't hear me. But that is what, when you were talking about the angel hair. So the things that I always heard growing up were that the sun was out, the clouds came out, they were all wet, it rained. Then the sun came out, and then they were dry. And then my grandma had collected what they called rose petals and put them in her Bible. So everyone in my family always keeps rose petals in their Bible, flattened from Fatima. So, I know people say angel hair. I don't know. Some people say maybe it was sort of like flakes or something. I don't know, but I don't. And then later I started thinking, oh, the sun danced. And I thought, they never said that. That's just me reading books. And then my aunt said, oh, she saw the Blessed Virgin, but I don't know that that's what she claimed. What I really heard growing up was this, the sun coming, disappearing, rain coming out, clothes drying, and something falling from the sky that to them they described as rose petals. That's how it was described to me. So I don't know. I thought all of that was fascinating. That was great, man. Are you kidding? Not boring at all.
Cool.
To nerds like us. I mean, I was just like, and also I wanted to say stuff, but I didn't want to interrupt because every time I'd ask a question, you're like, wait, it's coming. Hold on. But
and just a parallel there that you all, what stood out for you folks when you did the research, that how it parallels what we were trying to understand about the phenomena. We're not saying anything. We don't know what it means. We don't know. Ultimately, we're all trying to figure out what it is and who we are and all that. And then the work that you've done in the different organizations just to try to expand that, not just, the Fatima and everything that happened around it, fascinating, but we're talking about a bigger issue here. We're talking about a bigger thing. And so I do have a question. It takes us a little bit away from something and maybe is hopefully close to your heart. So I want to ask you a question. So, and I'm going to bring it up, and then you tell me if we're near where we're supposed to be. But so you wrote recently in July on the Stellar, which is the International Observatory for Anomalous Phenomenon, in this July 2025. You wrote this article, Are We Ready for Contact? Am I wrong about that? Did you write that? It's on the website, and
yes, it is.
I just thought it was incredible what you did there. And then the reason why I bring it up, because we had just recently talked about Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, I'm sorry,
yes,
who's done the transient work with the glass plates from the Palomar Observatory, and the transient reflective denoted that there was probably stuff in the sky in the pre-satellite days that could associate itself with the phenomenon and all that. But one of the things that you said about this contact thing, and there was many things, and it refers to a larger article written by the group, and I'm going to put it in the description when we come here. But you talked about these techno-signatures and the future of what that is, about how we're going to recognize those in terms of sensors. But the biggest thing that you said, and this goes to the premise, are we ready? Are we prepared because of our science and our technology that eventually it's going to come out, whether it's through disclosure, whether it's through discovery, whether it's through a combination of that? And I don't know, and I'm asking, so are you able to even mention this article? You seem somewhat so talk to me about it.
I mean, in terms, my disclosure is a process, it's not an event, right?
Right.
We all know that. Right? And I think maybe the Western world may be more prepared to discuss a situation of contact, but the rest of the world has so many other priorities, mainly surviving, that probably is not that ready for a turmoil that may bring what contact may bring. Right. Yes, we are evolving in terms of capturing and analyzing those signatures. But again, I think that right now we can see multi-layers of UAP studies that will, they are so different and with different goals as well. So, I'm not mentioning specifically that article. The mainstreaming of ufology, when stigma has been a little bit erased and you find more and more academics coming to the field with very different expectations than the general public, with a more critical approach that has to be. And so sometimes science does not go to people's expectations, because people may find themselves defrauded but by what science may find. And so and also we have different approaches also in terms of cultural terms. If you go to South America, people are more totally open to spiritism, to the esoteric, to the spiritual approach. If you go to Europe, it's much more conservative. Right? You cannot, if you go to, for instance, to Brazil, you will see in the UFO conference, you will see people talking about spiritism, and you see people talking about contact. There's a relationship, and then people talking about UFO cases and the more science-based approach, but still it's all on the same bag, more or less. You cannot do that in Europe, and probably not everywhere in the US. True. If you go to Africa, it's like darkness. You don't know that much about Africa or the African cases. If you go to the Middle East, nothing happens. China is more or less, there are a few groups in Hong Kong and the big cities, but if you go, and still the information is very controlled. If you try to go deeper, you don't find anything. And so, are we ready for contact? I think, I wish I am ready, maybe. But I see that most people are not. And most people may feel, how can I say? The term is missing. Defrauded by what they
Well,
find.
the whole idea is, and on your paper, is this whole lack of trust. You know, it's just a lack of trust in the authorities, and even it's funny, even in some of the Fatima stuff, the lack of trust in those who are in positions of power. And I have to apologize. It's another discussion, and I would actually really like you. So we're actually at the end of where we wanted to be, and we wanted to give you an opportunity. If there's anything that you want to say or share with anybody before you go from us, and then we'll close the show.
Well, I would like to maybe to have these small minutes that we have to also not only thank CJ for reaching out and you, Richard, also to giving me this opportunity, but allowing CJ to make some questions as well, if possible, if I can answer quickly.
Sure. Like what? You mean, some of the questions I wrote down?
Yes.
Oh, yes. No. I mean, look, we kind of discussed them. We kind of got into it, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, questions, I guess, are more esoteric or whatever. It's just, what, is what we think of God really an alien, like super being? And it just is, how all of this is just related. And I think also it's just, like I've said before, it's a lot of words.
Well, that's really another discussion. What is God? What is creation?
I know. And it's interacting with us in some way. And I just think it's all connected personally, and all the stories of the Bible and the Catholic marriage. I mean, I think a lot of these things are more connected than people think, and we compartmentalize. We put that's church, and this is this, and that's, and that's meditation, and, past life regret or what. And I don't know how they all connect. And I'm just saying.
And again, consciousness reveals to us that everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
And we have different layers of interpretation of it. Right?
Yeah, and we just
so
don't.
It's difficult to manage or to have wording to everything. But yeah, we live on a reality that we are still learning, and we have a tendency for some. How can I say, for some to be too arrogant before the unknown.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's where every time I go down the UFO rabbit hole, it just kind of ends up leading back to religion, and then all these stories, and examining them under a different light. And if you look at a lot of the religious texts, and you strip away the religious language, it becomes a story that involves discs in the sky, entities that we don't know where they came from.
And we don't know anything, because even if you go through UFO literature, it's a repeat.
It just repeats all through history, and all the different religions and all the different cultures, and they give it different names. Wrap up when you can, Bill says. We want to have you back, obviously, but I don't know. We'll give you
whenever you want.
Thank you so
always be available.
Much. Like such an honor to have you. And I'll make sure. I think I sent Bill your info, but if not, or Richard your info, but I'll make sure he has it too.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll see you backstage in just like 1 second. I mean, I know we got to go. We got to cut out. So I just want to thank everybody. I'm going to return this headset because I said genius stuff during that podcast and nobody heard me. I was wondering what was up, and I'm returning that. My hunt continues for the right headset. And Richard, you just close us out with your final thoughts.
Well, there's only one thing to say, and that is, remember, the entrance door to the sanctuary is inside you. I think that's what it's all about. I
think so too. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We'll be back.
Thank you.
Another great guest. Thank you. Good job, Richard. Good to see you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Bill.